जी, बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। अस्सलाम वालेकुम एवरीबॉडी। आज हम एक सेशन के लिए इकट्ठे हुए हैं रिसर्च प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट पे। हमारे रिसोर्स पर्सन हैं डॉक्टर फादर रहमान साहब, जो कॉमर्स यूनिवर्सिटी लाहौर में एज असिस्टेंट प्रोफेसर जॉब कर रहे हैं। तो डॉक्टर साहब का एक वास्ट एक्सपीरियंस है, हमारा इनसे गायबाना तारुफ होता रहता है। ये एक रिसर्च प्रोजेक्ट एनआरपीयू के और बाकी रिसर्च प्रोजेक्ट चला रहे हैं, एंड ही नोज हाउ टू रन अ प्रोजेक्ट। जो भी उसकी बॉटलनेक्स हैं, जो उसके प्लस या माइनसेस हैं, तो उस पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से आज हमने डॉक्टर साहब को जहमत दी है तो आए और अपने जो हमारी ट्रेनिंग का एक पार्ट बने। जी डॉक्टर साहब, प्लीज कंटिन्यू।
Thank you, Dr. Shanwar. सबसे पहले I would like formally to thank Dr. Saif and his team for inviting me for this talk. आज की जो हमारी presentation है बड़ी ही rough user या layman language में कहें तो बहुत ही जो जिसे अक्सर बुक का टाइटल होता है Fool's Guide to Something ना, तो इस तरह हमारा जो टाइटल है Administrative Dynamics of Developing and Running a Research Lab, इसमें सारे do's and don'ts हैं कि जब आप एक प्रोजेक्ट विन करते हैं तो कैसे उसको रन करना होता है, कैसे चलाना होता है, क्योंकि हाइपोथेटिकल वर्ल्ड एक डिफरेंट है, पाकिस्तान की ग्राउंड रियलिटीज बहुत डिफरेंट है, बहुत ज़्यादा डिफरेंट है। तो कोई भी बुक या कोई भी कह लें कि एक ट्रेनिंग सेशन जैसे मैं आज बात करूंगा आपसे, इट डज नॉट गिव यू द रियल फील अनलेस यू डू इट योरसेल्फ. Anyhow, we'll be talking about the do's and don'ts of running a project in a lab. So I would like to start briefly with the introduction. I'm working as told by Dr. Shanwar as assistant professor in chemical engineering department, ComSets Lahore. I'm running a lab. We call it Beam Lab, Biorefinery Engineering and Microfluidics Lab. It was established with the NRPU back. We won along with Dr. Saf. He was the PI. It worth actually a lot of money, 19.8 million, a handsome amount to establish a lab, which Alhamdulillah we did, and it is now fully functional. Then I won another NRPU in 2017, which worth around 10.05 million and PKR. And then we have another collaborator with us, Dr. Naim. I'm sure you would have heard of him. He's also having an NRPU worth around 4.5 million or so. So Alhamdulillah, we had a lot of funds and we have utilized them to the best of our potential. And we have managed to graduate several master students, and there are a number of PhD students working with us. Alhamdulillah, 2 students have submitted their thesis for foreign evaluation. And along with this, we have established several collaboration. To name a few, we are working in close relation with Punjab University, Chemical Engineering Department, Punjab University, University of Lahore, University of Sheffield, UK, and there are a couple of wastewater related companies with which we are trying to commercialize our technologies. So what we are going to talk about, we have 2 major agendas. First, the lab development, and then the smooth functioning. So lab development has many key points in it. The first one is winning a research grant. Of course, in order to run a lab, to build a lab, you need to have a research grant. These are not, good times in anywhere in the world where university would give you seed money of millions of rupees or dollars to establish the lab. There is only one solution left, that is to win a project and establish a lab. And then comes huge amount of trouble, which is almost unforeseen for anyone who has graduated from foreign university or from abroad, because as a PhD student the life is different, and as soon as you come on the other side of the table and you start working as a supervisor or PI, the dynamics of the whole thing changes altogether. So, for example, lab space allocation, we'll talk about this. This is a struggle against Roman Empire. I tell you, even more difficult than that. Then you need to be sure about your utilities connection. One would think that this is like a layman job or laborer's job, but as a PI, you would be struggling, most of the time with these things than with the actual research. The actual research comes very late in the lab after like 1 year or even sometime 2 years. So utilities connection, lab design, then preparing the tender, dealing with the vendors are very crucial part of the lab development, the initial phase. Then operation, the foremost and the most difficult thing is to find the research students. There aren't many research motivated students. They just want to get their degree. Even in the PhD level, you won't find many students who are motivated. They're doing PhD for the sake of something else and not for the sake of research. So you have to find good student, and it's worth spending as much time as you can on finding a good MS or PhD student. Then the inventory record, then we have safety, then how to establish collaboration, and then how would you supervise a student. We'll be discussing all these things in detail in today's session. And the last one is monitoring and assessing the lab performance. Let me know if I'm going too quick or you have any query. You can stop me there, and then I'll be happy to answer. Okay. So, how to win a research grant? Although it's not the objective of our today's topic, I'll just highlight few key points so that everyone could get a kickstart. So, first, you need to learn how to write a research proposal. Actually, writing a research proposal is presenting science in an artistic way. We as engineers or scientists, we may be very good in science, but when it comes to the presentation, we generally lack in that skill. So it's very crucial skill to learn how to present your science so that every reader, technical or non-technical, could understand it. So writing the proposal, you should have your goals very much clear, crystal clear. So if you are addressing, if you're applying for a national, for example, NRPU, national grant call, you should be focusing on the local problem or national problem. The international community, however, is not interested in problem based calls. They're more interested in fundamental science or basic science or any new phenomena you want to explore. So this is a basic difference between international research proposal and the local or national research proposal. The domain is different altogether. And if you have a collaborative project call such as Park Turk or Park China, you should need to identify a problem which exists in both countries, and you need to identify a potential partner in the respective country as well who is happy to make collaboration with you. I have a very interesting story to tell you. Those are 16 17 mein, I think there was a Paktur call, and I identified a professor who was willing to collaborate with us. And I actually wrote the proposal. He just had to fill in the ionic liquid part, and all the wastewater treatment part was filled by me. And at the very last moment, he backed off for no good reason. So all the effort I had put in was wasted. So it's very important to identify a collaborator who's willing to stand with you by the end. And then do not get too ambitious. Often writing a research proposal, we think we might go to the moon, which is not true. Again, the ground realities of Pakistan are very harsh. I'll explain those, in bits and pieces in today's presentation. So things are really difficult. So you rather be more realistic in your approach and your achievable goals than to be very ambitious. Hota ye hai, when you come back from the foreign, वहां पर जो the environment is so conducive, the infrastructure is so large, you think everything is possible. But in Pakistan, you do not get that much infrastructure, you do not have that conducive environment, so you tend to struggle, and you struggle for like 6 months, 1 year, and then you tend to demotivate. तो अपने आप को इतना ना स्ट्रेच करें, don't be too over ambitious, and be very realistic, be very practical in your approach. Then your methodology should be very clear, be very precise, very concise. Just like writing a research article, you need to provide a lot of details in it. And then the equipment is very tricky while listing it down. होता ही है जब आप प्रपोजल सबमिट कराते हैं और जो आप अवार्ड होता है, there's a difference of around 1 year or sometime even 2 years. So there's a huge difference in price when you have quoted them while writing the proposal, and when you actually get the proposal and you're actually awarded with the proposal and you ask for the same equipment, the quotation is like 50% more or so. So you need to be very very careful and be very broad and be very general. If you write very specific items, it's going to be very difficult for procuring those items with the same money. Then we have a lab space allocation problem. As I said, it's a struggle against the Roman Empire. The thing is, we're living in Pakistan. Universities do not have that much covered area to provide each faculty member with their own lab space. And even if they do, they don't have the required infrastructure to make that covered space look into or transform into a lab. So if you are like 10 faculty members, PhD faculty member working in a department, the chances of you getting a research proposal or a research grant is very thin. So it's understandable that universities won't have 10 spare labs available for each of you. So what you do as soon as you start submitting proposals, and one thing more I would like to mention, that you do not win every proposal. I, for example, have submitted around 12, 13 proposals, and I have only managed to win one proposal. I have qualified for semifinals 2, 3 times, but only managed to win one. So as soon as you start submitting your research proposals, you should start communicating with your higher ups, with your HOD, that you are preparing proposals, you are submitting. Chances are there that you will win in 6 months or 1 year time. You might be needing a lab, so you will be buying, for example, a GC, or you would be buying HPLC, or your reactor would be like 5 by 4 inch, 5 by 4 feet. So all those things very vaguely, and you might require a lab of maybe 14 by 14 feet or 20 by 20 feet. So every kind of these things should be going through your HOD's mind as well. But once you have won a project, make a very precise lab plan, very, very precise lab plan. And as soon as you won a project, do not just talk, write it down in the email. That's an official record. The thing is, the money would come around 6 months time once you have been awarded with the award letter. But the lab space, it might take 12 to 18 months. So paise aage हुए हैं, but you do not have space to put your equipment in. और HEC हो या PSF हो या कोई भी फंडिंग एजेंसी हो, they would ask for the report in first 12 months. होता ही है, पैसे आ गए हैं, आपके पास लैब नहीं है, इक्विपमेंट आ गया, उसको रखना कहाँ पर है? सो अगर आपकी पहली रिपोर्ट ही नेगेटिव आए, तो यू स्ट्रगल अ लॉट. सो इट्स more than useful to have your plan B ready. Okay, so you not only rely on your own personal lab, you need to have some space allocated for yourself, where you could put your equipment, and you should be able to write something in your first year report. Then the utility connection, it's very difficult to get your works department work. I'm not sure how things are somewhere, some other places in Pakistan, but in major universities, I won't name them, there are more than few actually, where the works department, they don't want to work. So it's very difficult. होता क्या है, जो conventional method है, you write an application down, you go to your HOD, and he would screen some items from it. Then he would mark it to director, who would approve it. Again, he would screen something which would go to the works department, who would come visit and make their own plan. And then, after 6 months, they would come back and realize, okay, we have forgotten about it, and we are not communicated about the plan, so we need another approval. So you would write another application, and the ball keeps rolling and rolling. However, a more productive way is to spoon feed them every bit, every inch of the lab, every connection you want to have in your lab, whether it be a water connection, electricity connection, gas, exhaust, drain, anything you think of the connection. You need to make a separate diagram for electrical connections, for water connect, everything, and attach it with the application, so that starting from yourself to your HOD to your director to your works department, everyone is on the same page what you want. And the only trick is to follow up, starting from yourself, because you tend to get demotivated. Starting from yourself to HOD to director to everyone, just keep following up, following up. That's the only way. And do not try to be boss around them. The psyche of the works department is very, very different. Most of them, they are laborers, and you want to be friends with them in order to get productive ideas, or productive, or to get something productive out of them. Then we have lab design. No one in the world knows better than yourself, like what to do with your lab. How would your lab look like? So you need to translate your vision on the diagram, on the paper, and then build it accordingly. And you need to remember, this is not the first proposal and the last proposal you have won. There will be people who would want to come into the lab. You might win another project, because I'll be very surprised that if you win one project and do not submit another project. So for example, I have submitted 4 projects last year. 2 of them have been rejected, 2 of them are still under process. So once you have won a project and you're building a lab, you should be considerate about your future plan, what you want to do with it. And there might be a chance some students would want to come into the lab with their own rig. So you need to have some space for them. And this is the lab, this is not a store. Okay, so you need to have a working space between two equipment. ऐसा ना हो कि वो लगे कि सारे equipment they are stacked on one another, and it's not a lab. It's not a lab anymore. It looks like a store. And then you would want to maybe explore some other dimensions of your experiment, and then some of your colleagues or collaborators would want to explore some other dimension. So you need to be very, very generous in designing the lab. There are some specific requirement of a lab you should be careful about. For example, do you need a dark room? Do you need a clean room? Because these are very specific requirement. No general lab has this in them. So if you want to have a dark room or a clean room, you need to be very precise with their design and requirement. Because what happens, universities do usually don't tend to give you too much money for the infrastructure. A common misperception around in Pakistan is that you should get money for the infrastructure from the funding agency. However, this is not true. Even in international level, you do not get money for infrastructure development. When you sign an agreement, when you have won a project and you are in the final stage of getting the money, the funding agency would want to sign an agreement with you. And in that agreement, it is written very clearly that the infrastructure would be provided by the university. And you sometimes have to show that clause to your higher ups that this is not the funding agency's job, this is your job. So if you want to have a dark room or if you want to have a clean room, you would be getting that money from your university, not from the funding agency. Okay, so you want to be very precise with your requirements. And then there are some useful tips. So for example, usually you align the low power requirement equipment on one side and the high power requirement equipment on the other side. इसका फायदा क्या होता है, जब बत्ती जाती है you can switch on the low power requirement on the generator. However, the high power requirement equipment, you cannot put them on the generator. इसके साथ साथ एक advice ये है, do not ever switch on any equipment on the generator. Although if you're running a crucial experiment and you just cannot stop it, that's all right. But if it's a planned load shedding, do not switch on any equipment on generator. हमारे more than 5 equipment they have been destroyed. क्योंकि जनरेटर की पावर आउटपुट इट्स नॉट कॉन्टिन्यूस, इट्स नॉट यूनिफॉर्म, वो फ्लक्चुएशन बर्दाश्त नहीं कर पाता, और आपका यहाँ मदरबोर्ड उड़ जाता है या ट्रांसफार्मर उड़ जाता है. उसके अलावा कुछ चीजें हैं जो कि आपकी लैब में मस्ट 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 होनी चाहिए. पाकिस्तान में रिसर्च एनवायरनमेंट नहीं है, तो जो हमारा वर्क्स डिपार्टमेंट होता है उसको इतना पता नहीं होता. एक अंडरग्रेड की लैब और एक रिसर्च लैब में बड़ा ज्यादा फर्क होता है. सो फॉर एग्जांपल, आई वॉश पॉइंट होना ही चाहिए, वॉश बेसन होना ही चाहिए, आपका ड्रेन ऑन द फ्लोर लाजमी. इवन इन माय लैब आई गॉट इट आफ्टर 1 year, दे हैड नॉट पुट इट. होता क्या था, वी वर्क विद द एरिएशन, वी हैव अ टैंक of water tank which has a capacity of 400 liter. So draining that tank was a big problem, because there was no drain on the floor. Okay, so you need to have the drain, you need to have a separate space or cabinets for solvents, toxic chemicals, acids. You need to have space for the student luggage. No one thinks about, okay, if you have 6 7 master students, 2 3 PhD students, and you expect them to come every day, where are they going to put their bag, their laptop, for examples? So you need to have a space for them. Then you need to have safety exit. No one gives a damn about safety in Pakistan, but you need to have safety exit. This is very crucial. I'll talk about more about safety in next slides. Then fire extinguisher and a cabinet for the documentation. Preparing tender is very important step. First thing you need to know, if you're working in government organization or a private organization, because in both cases you need to know your purchase rules. You need to have them on your tips. Whatever purchase rule you're having in the university, you need to know them. Otherwise it's gonna be very difficult, because people tend to cheat on you. कि अब ये हो गया, अब फ्लां स्टेज में है, अब फ्लां स्टेज में है, एंड इट गेट्स डिलेड. कन्वेंशनल मेथड टेंडर का क्या होता है, आपने एक लिस्ट ऑफ इक्विपमेंट ऑलरेडी प्रपोजल में बनाई होती है, और आप क्या करते हैं, आप मार्केट में एक आध वेंडर से कांटेक्ट करते हैं अबाउट द प्राइसेस, या आप डायरेक्टली, फॉर एग्जांपल मैंने एजिलेंट को ईमेल की कि मुझे जीसी चाहिए, एजिलेंट वाले जो है वो ईमेल रीट्रैक कर देंगे लोकल डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर के पास, और फिर मैं उनसे बातचीत करूंगा और उनसे कोटेशन लूंगा. अब ये जो सारा मेथड है ना, इसमें एक सबसे बड़ा फ्लॉ ये होता है कि वी टेंड टू स्टिक विद द ओनली इक्विपमेंट वी हैव यूज्ड इन आवर पीएचडीज. एक नेचुरल टेंडेंसी, आई एम नॉट सेइंग इट्स अ रॉन्ग अप्रोच, लेकिन होता ये है कि यू कुड सेव अ लॉट ऑफ टाइम एंड मनी इफ यू टॉक मे बी विद 5 persons इंस्टेड ऑफ टॉकिंग विद ओनली one vendor. So the better approach is to spread your area of experts, area of vendors if you like, और सारों से बात करें, सारों से कोटेशन लें, आप फिजिकली भी बात करें. Vendors, they tend to give you extra discount, they have huge margin, so you can save a lot of money by speaking with more than one person. Just do not stick with the one person. हाँ, अगर आपकी कोई स्पेसिफिक रिक्वायरमेंट है जिसमें सिर्फ एक ही वेंडर है, वो सोल डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर है उस चीज का, तो फिर तो कोई ऑप्शन नहीं है. अदरवाइज यू नीड टू टॉक विद अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल अराउंड. For example, we have purchased a refrigerator in our department, which cost us around 400,000. So, I went to the market for buying a refrigerator for my home, and I was surprised that I could have used any ordinary refrigerator. But since the refrigerator in the lab, it has two doors, it's made of glass, it's imported, तो उसकी प्राइस कोई 10 times हायर है जो कि आप लोकल मार्केट से उठा सकते हैं. सो यू कुड सेव अ लॉट ऑफ मनी इफ यू स्पीक विद द वेंडर्स. जो एक और बहुत बड़ा मसला आता है वो सी ग्रेड क्वालिटी का आता है. एक्चुअली पाकिस्तान में बेतहाशा लोकल वेंडर बैठे हुए हैं जो कि चाइना से आइटम्स को इंपोर्ट करके आपको दे देते हैं. वही आइटम जब आप जर्मनी से, इंग्लैंड से या अमेरिका से उठाते हैं तो उसकी प्राइस 15-20 टाइम्स हायर होती है. वही आइटम जब कोई लोकल वेंडर आपको चाइनीज की कोट कर देता है तो उसकी प्राइस बहुत ज्यादा गिर जाती है. अब फॉर एग्जांपल आपने एक आइटम ए मांगी जिसकी स्पेसिफिकेशन XYZ थी. अब एक जर्मन सप्लायर आ गया और एक चाइनीज सप्लायर आ गया, दोनों ने आपको स्पेसिफिकेशन XYZ दे दी, लेकिन जो प्रिसीजन है, जो एक्यूरेसी है, जो उसकी लॉन्ग लाइफ स्टेबिलिटी है, लॉन्ग टर्म रिस्पॉन्स है, वो चाइनीज और क्या कहते हैं जर्मन आइटम का 1:, मे बी 100 हो. I'm not saying all Chinese items are bad, but most of the time people tend to quote low priced items. Low priced item क्यों quote करते हैं? क्योंकि उसको टेंडर विन करने के चांस ज्यादा होते हैं. अब चूंकि उसने एज सच आपकी रिक्वायरमेंट लिख दी है जो आपको चाहिए थी, तो आप उसे टेक्निकली नॉकआउट नहीं कर सकते. अब होगा क्या, वो 1/3 या 1/4 ऑफ द प्राइस आपको वो चाइनीज लो प्राइस्ड आइटम मिल जाएगी, एंड देन यू विल स्ट्रगल फॉर योर होल लाइफ. ठीक है, तो इसको हम करते क्या हैं, जब वी आर प्रिपेयरिंग टेंडर, वी ऑलवेज आस्क फॉर सर्टिफिकेट ऑफ एनालिसिस, वी ऑलवेज आस्क फॉर सर्टिफिकेट ऑफ डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन. इफ इट्स अ सोल डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर, you need to ask him to provide sole distributionship letter, and for chemicals you ask for consignment number. पाकिस्तान में उतने केमिकल सिग्मा एल्ड्रिच वाले पूरी दुनिया में सप्लाई नहीं करते होंगे जितना अकबरी मंडी लाहौर से सप्लाई होते हैं. उनकी बोतलें बिकती हैं, दे रीपैक और वो आपको दे जाते हैं. आपको अगर एक हाई प्योरिटी, आपका बड़ा सोफिस्टिकेटेड एक्सपेरिमेंट है, कोई हाई प्योरिटी केमिकल चाहिए भाई, तो उन्हें कहो भाई मुझे कंसाइनमेंट नंबर दें आप. ठीक है. इसके साथ साथ एक और रोड बम्प आ जाता है, एंड द रोड बम्प इज the time. If you if you get very specific, for example, for certificate of analysis, certificate of distribution, you ask for consignment number. So the point to be noted is it's going to take 3 to 6 months before any equipment or any chemical starts coming into your lab. And if you get very specific, it may happen that no vendor would participate in the tender. ठीक है, तो your 3 to 6 months will be wasted again. You will be preparing BOQ once more, you will be submitting tender again, and 3 to 6 months are gone again. And now you only had 3 to 6 months for the lab experimentation, which will again be consumed in tender. Okay, and you have to submit the report in 12 months anyway. So you got to be very careful while preparing the BOQs. How to solve this problem? Talk with your seniors, talk with the people who have gone through these processes, talk with the vendors, and they would have a way around it. Vendors, they are very tricky people, very clever guys. They would ask for extension. Sir, जर्मनी से निकल आया है सर, कराची में पहुंच गया है. दे वुड हैव ऑल द लेटर्स टू शो यू. सर लाहौर ड्राई पोर्ट पहुंचा हुआ है, ये देख लें. हफ्ते की एक्सटेंशन दे दें, महीने की एक्सटेंशन दे दें. होता ही है कि जब आपको अवार्ड हो जाता है टेंडर, तो उसके एक सर्टेन टाइम पीरियड के बाद, जो कि म्यूचुअली एग्रीड अपॉन होता है, 30 days या 45, यू नीड टू सप्लाई द आइटम. ठीक है. अब पाकिस्तान में, आई एम नॉट सेइंग कि वेंडर्स आर करप्ट, पाकिस्तान में बैरियर्स ही इतने हैं कि जिसकी कोई हद नहीं है. तो इट्स फेयर एनफ कि अगर एक वेंडर आता है आफ्टर 45 days एंड से कि सर मुझे 15 दिन की एक्सटेंशन चाहिए, आई विल सप्लाई द आइटम आफ्टर 15 days, इट्स परफेक्टली ऑल राइट. What's not all right is to give them clearance or give the approval for the to finance department to release the check. You simply do not do that. You take out your BOQ, you check each and every item piece by piece. जो भी कुछ BOQ में लिखा हुआ है, he has to supply it. He has to run the equipment himself. Do not even touch the equipment. He will run it. He will get a standard test and standard reading for you. Okay, and if you have agreed upon a training, he needs to provide you with that training. I'm mentioning a case study where I know a GC which worth around 3.5 million, around 3,500,000, is still unoperational after 3 long years. Vendor bhag gaya. As simple as this. So you do not give clearance unless you get justified. It may take 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. There are no moral binding. He has provided the code. He is responsible to run it for you. The second segment is lab operation. The first point is, as I mentioned, is finding a good research student. They are the backbone actually who will be running the research lab. Since we are all teachers, we would know most of the time is taken by administrative duties. You just do not have enough time. Unlike when you were a PhD student, you do not have enough time to go into the lab and run the experiment. You might want to stay in the lab for longer period of time, but this does not mean you will be running the experiments yourself. These will be your MS and PhD students mostly, and every now and then out of 500 or 1000 you get a one very bright BS student who would be able to do it for you. So it's worth spending the time in identifying the students you want. Okay, so once you're asking a student to join the lab, the first question is if you have money, or if you do not have money. I mean, if you do not have project, it's not like you're going to stop your research. You will be doing your research somehow. But if you have a scholarship to pay, you could actually interview them, make a deal like this is much we are going to pay and this is much I expect you to spend in my lab. So I'm going to give you a salary for a month, and you are required to spend 4, 5, 6 hours a day in the lab to carry out the research work. होता ही है कि बच्चे बड़ी जल्दी डीमोटिवेट हो जाते हैं. सेल्फ मोटिवेशन इज द की प्रॉब्लम. सो यहाँ पर आपका एज ए सुपरवाइजर रोल आता है कि आप उसको कैसे मोटिवेट करते हैं. जब आप इंटरव्यू ही कर रहे होते हैं, तो बच्चे में सबसे ज्यादा जो चीज आपको देखने की जरूरत है, वो उसकी मोटिवेशन है, वो उसका एम्बिशियस है, एम्बिशंस है कि वो रिसर्च ओरिएंटेड है भी या नहीं भी है। जो बच्चे रिसर्च ओरिएंटेड नहीं है उनसे प्रोजेक्ट करवाना बड़ा मुश्किल काम है। ठीक है जी। एक स्टूडेंट जो है बैड स्टूडेंट वुड इवन समटाइम डीमोटिवेट यू। इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू मेंटेन इन्वेंट्री रिकॉर्ड, क्योंकि होता ही है कि बहुत ज़्यादा, फॉर एग्जांपल मैं आपको अपनी एग्जांपल दूं तो हमारी लैब बायोफ्यूल के ऊपर बहुत ज़्यादा फोकस्ड है। हमारी जो मंथली रिक्वायरमेंट है मेथनॉल की वो समवेयर अराउंड 10 to 15 लीटर्स समटाइम चला जाती है। यू जस्ट कैन नॉट कीप अ ट्रैक कि यार इतनी मेथनॉल गई कहाँ पर। इसीलिए इन्वेंट्री का रिकॉर्ड रखना बहुत जरूरी है। कितनी बॉटल्स आई पर एक्सपेरिमेंट, कितने ml ऑफ मेथनॉल रिक्वायर्ड थे, बच्चे ने कितने एक्सपेरिमेंट किए, कितनी मेथनॉल लगी। इसका सबसे बड़ा फायदा ये होता है कि फोरकास्टिंग बड़ी आसान हो जाती है। आप ऐसा कोई भी केमिकल, मैं आपको अपनी पर्सनल अगेन एग्जांपल दे सकता हूँ कि आप कोई सोफिस्टिकेटेड केमिकल, कोई आयनिक लिक्विड, कोई मॉफ मंगवाए ना जो कि स्टोर आइटम नहीं है, तो उसको वेंडर अपने मुंह से कहता है सर मैं आपको 16 हफ्ते बाद डिलीवर करूंगा। 16 हफ्ते इज अ लॉट ऑफ टाइम, दैट्स अराउंड 4 मंथ्स। और अगर आप यू लूज द ट्रैक ऑफ इट कि यार वो केमिकल मुझे इतना मंगवाना चाहिए था और मैंने इतना कम मंगवा लिया, या मैंने मंगवाया हिसाब के बराबर था लेकिन स्टूडेंट ने एक्सपेरिमेंट में जाया कर दिया, तो पैसे उतने मैटर नहीं करेंगे जितना वो जो 4 मंथ पेन्स टेकिंग टाइम है ना, वो जितना आपको खराब करेगा। सो इन्वेंटरी का रिकॉर्ड मेंटेन करना इट्स वेरी 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 क्रूशियल। इट सेव टाइम एंड इट सेव मनी एज वेल। और जो लैब, इसका बड़ा आसान सा हल है। आप यू डू नॉट ट्रैक एवरी केमिकल योरसेल्फ, यू गिव द ओनरशिप टू द सीनियर स्टूडेंट्स जो आपके साथ एसोसिएटेड लैब इंजीनियर है या योर सीनियर पीएचडी स्टूडेंट। यू इन्वॉल्व देम एंड आस्क देम टू मेंटेन द इन्वेंटरी फॉर यू। Safety, I just cannot emphasize how important it is. अगर आपका सिस्टम अनसेफ हो तो बाहर की दुनिया में लोग कन्फिस्केट कर देते हैं आपकी रिग को, आपके एक्सपेरिमेंट को, आपकी इवन पूरी लैब को। आपके प्रोफेसर की अथॉरिटी नहीं होती अगर आपका सिस्टम अनसेफ, इफ दे फाउंड इफ योर सिस्टम इज अनसेफ। सो इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कि आप सेफ्टी की जितनी भी तदाबीर हैं उनको मलहूज़ खातिर लाएं एंड इट एक्ट अपॉन इट। ओके, so for example the first thing I do is make student write or fill the COSH form. COSH is control of substances hazardous to health. So you ask student to fill in every detail, every process detail, procedural detail, equipment detail, chemicals detail, and ask him to do the risk analysis. Which chemical is toxic, which chemical is not toxic, which equipment is easy and safe to run, which equipment is not safe to run. For example, in our lab, we have microplasma unit where the operational voltage is around 4 to 6 kilovolt. It's not safe for everyone to operate the power supply. And if a student is planning to run that power supply, I would ask him to write down the complete experimental procedure and then assess the safety, and then comes to me. And he's not allowed to operate the equipment unless he gets the sign from myself. Okay, and if I'm not in the lab and if I'm busy, I would have allocated the power to some senior student. Otherwise, use of power supply or use of any sophisticated equipment is not allowed. Along with the COSH form, I always ask my student to submit the material safety data sheet. So for example, if a chemical is spilled, it's a colorless chemical, I don't know if it's water, if it's methanol, or if it's sulfuric acid. So you got to be very careful what chemicals you are dealing with, and no one would know what chemical is that. If a student has spilled something on the shelf, the only way to identify what is it is to read its COSH form, which should be there, which should be placed there next to its experimental rig. अदरवाइज पानी है या मैथनॉल है, अगर मैं टिश्यू से वाइप करने बैठ जाऊं तो वो फिर जो है वो बड़ा मसला हो जाएगा. If you have a collaborative student, you ask their supervisor to fill the COSH form. Okay, but you do not let anyone work without the COSH form. Safety, as I said, it's everything. It's an attitude you need to develop first yourself and then inculcate in your student. You display safety sign all over your lab. You use personal protection equipment yourself, and you do not allow any student in yourself without PPEs. This is very, very important. Then you need to have a separate cabinet, as I said, for toxic chemical, for hazardous chemical. And then you need to see if someone wants to work out of hours, if someone wants to work after 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, what kind of experiments they want to do. So for example, if someone wants to do some aeration experiment after 5 o'clock, I have no problem. But if someone wants to do biofuel experiment, he needs to find another potential lab mate. Otherwise, I would not let him do any biofuel experiment or any microplasmas experiment. It's not safe for anyone, any single person to do the experiment. I want to share two incidents in my lab where one of the student, he had put autoclave in the microwave oven. The autoclave was made of steel. It was actually a pressure vessel. So what student did, he didn't know the boiling point of the reaction mixture in the autoclave. So he took it out from the oven and opened the lid. As soon as he opened the lid shoot like a rocket. It hit the floor, it hit the roof of the lab, and on its way back, it fall on a glass reactor. Thankfully, it did not hurt anyone else. So students, they are very stupid. They are inherently stupid, especially while you are working in Pakistan and you do not have a foreign experience. Because something like that, if that something like that has happened in a foreign country, they would have, maybe sacked the student. It's such a dangerous thing. But in people in Pakistan, they simply do not care. Similarly, a similar experiment has happened while boiling some reaction mixture. It was a female student who was boiling some white color thing. Although she had submitted the cosh form, she was boiling it at 60 degrees C. And when I came into the lab, everything was white. It had spilled all over the floor. Thankfully, Alhamdulillah, she was unharmed, but she didn't know what happened. So in comes a risk analysis. Why would that happen? How could have that happened? She should have known and avoided that on all at all costs. So you got to be very careful, because if something goes wrong, being lab in charge or PI, you will be the sole responsible. No one would say कि student ने गलती की थी. So you got to be very careful. Collaboration, you should be very open about it. The equipment, the consumable, it's not your personal property. It's the property of the funding agency, your institute. Yes, you do own the intellectual property, but the money is coming from people's tax. So you should be very generous about it. But having said that, you need to collaborate with the right people who are in their right mindset. People, somehow, I won't say someone is good or someone is bad, but people are different. So what might be right for you may not be right for me. So we need to have same mindset. We need to have same ethics when it comes to the work, when it comes to publishing. We, for example, in my lab, every experiment is repeated 3 times. We do not report anything which we are not confident on. A very clear example is I supervised my first student back in 2015, 2016. We got amazing results, but at the end, I was getting dubious about the standard we have bought. We had bought 99.998% pure standard, which should have been delivered in cold storage because it tend to dissociate with the temperature. But when we received the standard, it was around 4 degrees C or 5 degrees C temperature. So I was not sure that the purity is 99.998%. So although we had amazing results, we never published them because you simply do not do it. You got to be absolutely sure what you are publishing. So work ethics is very important. Some people do it this way, some people do it other way. So having your collaborator on the same page is very important. Similarly, when you publish, people tend to put a lot of people's name on the journal article. Without going into the nitty gritty, you need to establish clear rules with your collaborator, whether you want to do it or not, so that nothing comes, nothing goes bad between you and your collaborator. Supervising student is the most important skill, I would say. It's not only training that matters, it's about inspiring them. You would think in a way that your student will be supervising more students after 4 or 5 years. So what would you want to instill in your student which they would carry for the whole life? So for example, I would say free thinking is the most important skill. Critical thinking is very important. Observation is very important. These are the attributes I would want my students to carry with themselves. So try to train them. Just do not tell them what to do. Try to inspire them to be a better researcher, not only a better student. The biggest problem I have found while talking even with my teachers is that we tend to idealize things. We means supervisor or the lab in charge, because we had done our training in foreign countries. We think the environment is as conducive as we have felt, and while we were doing PhD, we were getting handsome amount, we were enjoying a much better lifestyle, we were having a way 100 times better infrastructure and lab. But the things in Pakistan, they are different. You're not paying that much money to the student. Your lab is not as good as your supervisor's lab. The infrastructure is not as good. The people are not friendly. Your administrative department simply sucks. I'm sorry to use the word, but the administrative offices, registration, finance, all student related offices, they're not that friendly, as friendly as you would have experienced yourself. So you do not expect your student to be as productive or as self motivated as you were. This is a lesson I myself learned after 2 3 years. You need to guide your students on each step. So you do not expect your student would maybe read 100 paper and bring a research problem to yourself. You need to identify, you need to sit with them and tell them what would it like to create a research problem, to identify a research problem. You do not do their work, but you guide them in a way that they find the path, and then you train them gradually. They would need a lot of help in modeling data and statistical analysis data. I would want to give my personal example. I have some expertise in COMSOL multiphysics, in plasma module, chemical reaction engineering, heat transfer module, mass transfer module, some fundamental chemical engineering modules. I downloaded the software, I installed it, I took my laptop and I went to my postdoc, and I asked, can you give me some crash course or show me how does it work? And he said, there is no showing how does it work. You go to the model library, explore it yourself. It took me 9 months, to build my first model, and 12 months to publish a paper out of it, because I had that much time. I do not expect the same from my students. I had never said these words to my student, go and explore it to yourself. I down with them and I take them step by step how to build a model. Okay, because again, things, infrastructure, financial situation, motivational level, infrastructure, personal circumstances, there are 100 factors I could count, which are different. So you need to train them, train your students very patiently, very steadily. So because you're not only training your student, you're training the future researcher of your country. So you got to be very cautious and very generous, and you need to build it step by step. Last thing is monitoring the lab progress. What happens? You tend to get carried away. You tend to get demotivated again because of the circumstances of Pakistan. Uh, so it's very easy, to forget what you wanted to do. So what you do, you make a plan and write it down. It's very important. Not only the logbook maintenance, you write every plan in your own personal diary and make a deadline. Now there are two types of deadlines you would want to make. First deadline is very short term goal. So for example, I want to get my students started on COMSOL in next 1 week or 2 week. So for example, I want to float a tender in next week. So these are short term goals. And I should be checking myself not only on daily basis, but on the deadline. Have I completed it or not? If you have not completed, that's not the end of the world. No one is gonna kill you. Okay. If you have not fulfilled our deadline, it's all right. But keep it in mind, keep it in your diary, keep struggling around it, and keep remember you need to do it on daily basis, weekly basis, or monthly basis. And the second target or second goals are long term goals, which may be 6 months time or a year's time. So for example, I want to publish in a really high impact factor paper, maybe in Nature, in a year's time, because you do not get an idea overnight. And even if you get the idea, you do not get to comprehend it in a week or in a month's time. And even if you comprehend the whole picture of article you are going to publish, you do not get the required literature, required equations to get it published in a really high impact factor journal over a month's time or over a 2 months time. It takes time. But if you have a plan, write it down and then bring it down into small steps. So for example, I would want to develop my hypothesis. I would want to build a model around my hypothesis, or design an experiment around my hypothesis. I would want to dig the data and build some equation out of that. So whatever your long term goal is, divide that long term goal into several short term goals. It helps you in keeping your motivation level high. अगर आपका गोल साल का है, तो it's very likely you will be, demotivated after 6 to 8 months, that it's not happening, because the step you are making, the progress you are making is very tiny. And you will tell yourself that nothing's happening, but actually things are happening in a very small changes. So if you make short term goals and make a check, keep a check, you would not be demotivated easily.